Hey there, it's Cass. We put together an episode that I'm really proud of. Not that I'm not proud of any of our episodes, but in this episode, we're going to be talking about some good practices for people to employ online, especially minors. And with that discussion, while we're not laboring over these topics, they do come up because they are some things to be conscientious of and be aware of. So I do have some content warnings for this episode. In addition, I'm also going to link some resources for people in the bottom description, such as the Text Crisis Line, the RAIN Network, and some other foundations, where if you feel as though you are not in a safe place, or you have been endangered by some of the things we're going to talk about, or you just need somebody to talk to, those are available for you to use. Content warnings for this episode include grooming, online harassment, sexual assault, death threats, call-out and cancel culture, bullying, mental illness, suicide, and anti-recovery. This episode is largely free of any swearing, so it should be probably about as PG-13 or PG as we can get with this topic. If you would like to share this with a younger person you know, that's totally cool, but I'd recommend listening to it first for yourself so you get a good idea of the content we have in here and if it's appropriate for you to share with that individual. Thank you so much, and with that, let's get into the episode. Hello, and welcome to Author's Note.
Don't listen!
My name is Cass.
And my name's Teese.
Teese, I have a challenge for us for this episode.
Okay.
I would like us to try and make this one as, let's say, family-friendly as possible, so no swearing. That's all I'm going to hold us to, is no swearing.
Okay. Oh boy, okay. I'll try.
Let's see how far we get into it before.
Start the timer, boys.
I also have a fun question for you this week.
Yeah.
Do you like Chipotle?
Is this a trick question?
No, it's not.
Yes, I do.
Okay, what is your order at Chipotle?
Depends how I'm feeling. Either I get a bowl or a burrito, but the inside always stays the same. Mm-hmm. That is chicken, brown rice, pinto/white beans.
Okay.
And then it's corn, sour cream, cheese, lettuce, and then the green sauce, like the spicier green sauce.
Yeah, they're medium.
And then a drink.
Ooh, delicious.
Yeah. What about you? Did you get Chipotle today?
I did. I got Chipotle for dinner today.
I literally got Chipotle yesterday for lunch, so...
Beautiful.
Stars aligned.
Absolutely decadent. I got... Yes. Okay, so my order has changed significantly, and for a very long time, all I got was steak, brown rice, and cheese, which I know is like, Cass, are you okay? No, I wasn't, and that's none of my business either. But now my order has changed dramatically, and I'm so enraptured by this new taste sensation that I've probably had Chipotle, I think, 3 times in the past 2 weeks.
Okay.
So I get a bowl with brown rice, lettuce, steak, no beans. I'm not a bean baby.
Oh,
and I get a little bit of the mild salsa, some sour cream, and some cheese then. And then I also get a side of hot salsa.
Okay.
That's my bowl. And then I shake it up.
Yeah.
Shake it up really good. I'm like shaking here in my seat as I do that.
Yeah.
But it's not coming across because this is an audio format. But yeah, that's my Chipotle order.
Okay.
I get chips too.
Ooh, I was going to say, I feel like that would deserve some chips.
Yeah.
As well.
A little bit.
I could see that. I can respect. Listen, all Chipotle orders are created equal as far as I'm concerned. I feel like
they're categorically financially not.
No.
The proteins cost different. I tried the cauliflower rice. I wasn't a fan.
My mom really likes cauliflower rice.
I feel like I don't think
she would get it at Chipotle.
Drier. Like, it was really wet.
Interesting.
But I feel like I would have enjoyed it if it was, like, maybe... I don't want to say fried, because then it's like, yeah, of course you would enjoy it if it's fried.
You're telling me this cauliflower fried this rice?
You're telling me a shrimp cinnamon toasted this crunch?
This episode will now be dated.
This episode was already dated as I said that. That meme's like a week old. Nobody cares about the cinnamon shrimp crunch. Teese, have you watched or explored anything fun or cool this week?
Yes, actually, I have been slowly but surely in an anime club with a few of my good pals. And we finished our first series of said anime club. We watched Kyosagiga, which is a 10-episode Toei anime. And it's like a fun time... not time exploration series, but it's kind of like your dad is also my dad, but my dad is your dad kind of anime.
Sounds problematic. I'm kidding.
I don't think it is. All things considered, I mean, it's just anime. No!
God. Oh. It didn't happen.
No, I've never said a swear word in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Cass, but that's it. Cass, what have you been consuming this past week?
Baby has a new favorite anime / manga.
Ooh.
I haven't started reading the manga yet, but I have a new favorite.
What is it? What is it?
Berserk.
Oh, Caspian.
I know.
So I only made it about 25 chapters in.
Okay.
Sometimes things that are torture porn are not good.
It's brutal. So I watched...
I kind of want to go back and try again, but I'm also reading some awful little vampire lad manga right now, so maybe once I catch up to that, I will tell you the deets about that later.
Okay. I watched the Golden Age arc movies, the 3 of them, on Netflix with Cass, which, yes, one of my best friends' name is Cass, which is wonderful and incredible. Cass squared, the ultimate power. So, hey, if you're interested in Berserk, read the content warnings. I'm telling you, go to Does the Dog Die? I don't think, sincerely, I would have been able to watch that if I hadn't been watching it with a friend and, like, joking around with them the whole time, because it's brutal. It's absolutely brutal.
It is. I mean, I don't know what parts we're going to cut out from this, but, like, part of the reason why I just couldn't watch it was, I mean, I could handle all of the things that are said within the series. Like, I'm very thankful that, like,
there's very graphic torture and
there's a lot
rape.
It's very clearly a male fantasy series.
Yeah, but there's also I don't want to. I feel like that almost discredits it, right? When we like kind of put it up on the shelf of like, it's a typical male fantasy, because there are aspects to it that are like, I don't think a lot of male fantasy deals with male sexual assault.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah.
And in like the really, there's just a lot there. There's a lot there. And then I'm going to further it up with, I actually want to talk a little bit about the book I finished reading a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Which was Lolita. So I read Lolita because you recommended me the Jamie Loftus Lolita podcast. And I have a habit of... This was not one of those scenarios, but I have a habit of re-traumatizing myself in search of making sure I have a full understanding and grasp of the media I wish to criticize. Don't watch 13 Reasons Why. I've seen all of it. Don't do it to yourself. But I've done that with a lot of things, and Lolita was... I was prepared for it to be a very difficult experience, and it was, but it was also a very... I would say healing and enlightening experience in a lot of ways that felt very validating. And I wanted to wait to bring up Lolita till this episode, because this episode we're talking a little bit about how to navigate the internet more safely and I would say appropriately when you are a minor. And I wanted to save Lolita because Lolita has been used as a tool to groom and manipulate a lot of minors, unfortunately. If you hear somebody describe Lolita as a romance or a love story, run the other way. It's not that. It's very much not that. And it enrages me that the quote on the back of the book is one of the only convincing love stories of our generation, because it's absolutely appalling and disgusting. And very much against the actual textual narrative, which is so very clearly like Humbert is a terrible, terrible man who's mentally ill, who hasn't sought treatment, and who harms people irrevocably. because of it. So I also, I've listened to all but the last episode of the Jamie Loftus Lolita podcast. I cannot recommend it enough. It's absolutely fantastic.
I highly, highly recommend, especially if you like limited series podcasts. Even it's a tight 10 episodes. And
it's a tight 10 episodes, but those episodes range in length from 45 minutes to 2 hours long.
Yeah, I highly recommend. It's fantastic.
It really gives a full picture of this text, how it has changed and how it has really been manipulated and bastardized by society. I'm allowing that use of that word because it's academic. But yeah, it was an enlightening time. Teese, when did you start using the internet, like, seriously?
I was 7 years old.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I would say I was probably, like, 8 or 9, I want to say.
I stuck to only Neopets. I stuck to Neopets until I was about 13. And that's when MySpace was kind of hot. And actually, no, maybe it was around 12. I remember being like in 6th, 7th grade when MySpace was getting big. And all of my friends had MySpaces, but I did not have one. I also did not watch YouTube videos in general. So I just stayed on Neopets for the most of the time. And then when MySpace came around, I kind of made one behind my mom's back. My mom found out. I had to get rid of it. I know. How could I? And then I just kind of stayed back on Neopets. And then I was 14. And
Were you ever on the Neopet forums? I hear things got pretty wild there.
Oh, yeah. I was constantly on the boards, and I was constantly in guilds, and I was constantly swapping MSN messengers with people. Oh, I've written an article, actually, about this before, oddly enough. I've written an article about LGBT anonymity on Neopets in the early 2000s. So if you're actually interested in that, I highly recommend getting Gay in the Guild. It's baby's first ever. Yeah, it's Memory Machine Zeal. It's a medium, what's the word? Magazine, I guess you could call it. It's a medium magazine, and it was my first ever paid gig. So it's not the best written piece, but like it's been cited in an ID article. It's been cited in a few panels, and the first time I saw said panel and they showed my article, I was like, that's my article! And I showed up in the middle of the panel, and then I ended up being on said panel eventually. So I mostly just spent most of my time on Neopets, and then when I was about 15, I switched to Tumblr, and then it became Neopets and Tumblr. So, but I still talked online, yeah.
Yeah. I think I definitely, like, grew up on the internet, and that has done...
Yeah, me too.
That has had its ups and its downs,
Irreversible damage. Just say it.
Yeah, there has been some irreversible damage. I can't deny that. And I think, there are some people for who that is not the experience, but I think the majority of people who did spend a lot of time on the internet, especially for us, because it was so new as we were growing up.
Yes,
and was really booming and populated by social media, that it became, unfortunately a more dangerous place, and subtly dangerous, not overtly dangerous the way your parents will warn you about, where they're like, don't give out your address online and don't tell people where you live. Like, that wasn't so much the problem. It was other aspects of it, and other aspects continue to be a problem, but those more nefarious reasons do continue to be, cautionary tales. And so as we talk a lot about fandom, right, I know we're older and we have, like, I think a generally older audience. I think they're around our age. I just turned 25. I got 1 year left of health insurance under my parents. I think our audience skews more towards our age and older, but if there is anyone out there who is younger, or maybe a listener has a younger sibling, I would encourage you to talk about some of the things we're going to talk about today with them, because I think ideas of internet safety have sort of fallen by the wayside, and a lot of that, I think, is the product of adults not knowing how to handle younger people on the internet. Like, we can't deny the fact that, like, the internet is still very young in regards to the entirety of human history and advancement, right? And, like, I don't think adults and children have figured out the rules or social graces for interacting alongside of each other in a lot of ways. And I would like to warmly open my hand to younger people, not personally, but through this episode to say, hey, here is some advice from a person who grew up on the internet that maybe hopefully you can apply to yourself to keep a little bit safer and set yourself up for better mental wellness down the road. I actually got some advice as well from a friend who works in child education and who's studying to become a school counselor. So big thank you to Julia for that. And the first thing she said to me, which I hadn't even thought of, but is so very plain and easy and simple, is if you are a minor on the internet, make all of your accounts private. Do not accept friend or follow requests from people you don't know. I wanted to jump in before we get even further into this topic about something we totally forgot to mention, but was the entire purpose for this episode. Not accepting DMs and friend requests from strangers also goes for celebrities, YouTubers, anyone you might look up to, because those people are strangers. You know, I understand that you feel like you might know them because you watch a lot of their content, but they are strangers and you don't know who they are personally, especially if they are much older than you. Even if they're a little bit older than you, be wary of that interaction. And if that person slides into your DMs and especially starts asking very personal questions or starts, soliciting gestures from you, whether that be inappropriate photos or asking you things that are of a sexual nature, block them, disengage, and talk to a trusted adult about that. All right, let's get back to the episode. And I know that sounds like sort of sheltered and extreme, but you are a child on the internet, and the internet consists of like 30% pornography, unfortunately, and also a lot of individuals who you just don't know. And there's really no reason that you need to be going out of your way to engage with strangers on that level, especially when you don't know them, I would recommend, keeping a relatively tight social circle. There are other ways to, get to know people on the internet. I know a lot of people engage in, fandom Discord servers to find and meet new friends, and I think, when you're in an avenue like that is more public and you are able to cut off communication, that's going to be a lot safer than giving someone access to your private Twitter account and you don't know them.
This episode isn't to chastise anybody, to be
no.
You shouldn't be online, because let's be real, the internet is a tool. It's a great tool, but also it could be an unsafe tool if used incorrectly, just like any piece of machinery.
Yeah.
Just like a saw, just like a hammer.
Just like any book.
Yeah. The internet is a tool, and there's safety precautions that should be kept in mind when you're using them.
Yeah.
And this is not to be rude to anybody to say, oh, you're too young, oh, you don't know how to use these properly. At the end of the day, we've been in your shoes at the same time. And
these are things I wish I had done growing up,
same.
essentially, to keep myself safer. And a lot of this, too, is going to talk about, actions you should maybe take to keep yourself safe. But at the end of the day, I do want to make it very clear, if you are harmed on the internet, that's not your fault. If you are victimized by somebody, that is not your fault. If somebody goes out of their way to hurt you, that is not your fault. And just because you haven't done some of these things we might recommend does not mean you are any more at fault. That's not how that works. Somebody else hurt you, and that's on them. It's not on you. In an ideal world, we wouldn't have to talk about this kind of thing. But I think talking about it is really important for those reasons. And at the end of the day, unfortunately, you can take every precaution in the world and still get hurt and still get harmed. And I hope that by sort of laying out some of these rules, we can maybe help prevent some harm. That's the goal. But if anything terrible has happened to you on the internet, my heart goes out to you. And if any of that has, of course, because the internet is a part of your real life, but if any of that has bled over into your physical life, I understand, and I am here for you through this episode to tell you that it is okay, and we can hopefully make things better for others in the future. Another big tip that Julia gave me was, and this is something I see a lot of younger people on the internet doing that really, really concerns me. If you're a minor, don't disclose your age on your profile publicly, especially not in your bio or on your card or your private web page. I don't care how password blocked you have that. There's no reason that a random stranger needs that information. And I understand that there is a call for a lot of adults who are posting not safe for work content to put age in bio, or minors want to put minor in their bio to indicate that they don't want adults interacting with them, which is totally fine, and I understand that. I would recommend against that, and if you find people engaging with you on Twitter or who are following you on Twitter when you are a minor and you don't want them following you, soft block them and move on. And if they continue to follow, just hard block them, you know? You don't have to give that person access to you, but putting your age in your bio is unfortunately like, I don't think you should do it, you know? And I think we understand why minors shouldn't put their age in bio, but unfortunately, it puts a marker over you that a lot of people will want to exploit, which I think is really terrible, but I think is the unfortunate truth of it. Mm-hmm. Additionally, with that, don't list your state or your city or other identifying information, like even your school mascot, publicly. A lot of those things, like I see people talk about, you know, their local convenience stores or things like that. Make that information really, really obtuse. Instead of saying like, oh, I went to Wawa the other day, just say like, I went to the convenience store, that sort of thing. Because again, all of these things collected over time can give people a really quick image of where you live and how to find you. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but it's very easy for people, especially now, to narrow down someone's location online with very little information. Mm-hmm. So you want to keep that personal information private and to yourself and to trusted long-term friends. The biggest thing that I see that scares me, I understand why it's happening, but I see a lot of people, not just minors, making public lists of their triggers and diagnoses online. Oh my God, please do not do that. I understand the urge to want to say to people, hey, please don't talk about these things to me. But unfortunately, you are also providing a readily available list for people to harm you and to hurt you and to harass you. Also, nobody needs to know your diagnoses. If that is something that you are really set upon using, I know that there are quite a few tags for artists going around, you know, like drawing with ADHD, you know, drawing with OCD, drawing with bipolar, things like that. I would say it's fine to participate in those, but make that choice when you are a little older. And I say when you're a little bit older because the landscape of hiring in the artistic field, especially, is largely online based. And your employer doesn't need to know that information. And if you're largely getting your clients through your social media, I don't think that's something you would want them to know. Maybe it is. Maybe you are comfortable disclosing that information. But again, I would encourage you to wait till you're a little bit older and, you know, are a little bit more out in the world. And I say that as somebody who has shared information with people in the past a little too readily. And I regret that those people have that information about me. I think especially when we learn diagnoses or we learn things about ourselves that really explain things and make sort of everything click into place, we get excited and we want to share about those developments with people. And I wish I personally had stopped for a moment and said, do I really want this person to have that information about me? Because there are a lot of people who now have information about me that I wish didn't, you know? Mm-hmm. And I don't want other people to end up in that scenario. In addition to, you know, putting a list of triggers up, I think that also you're trying inadvertently to eschew the curation of your own internet experience onto somebody else. And that is not going... I don't want to say that's not going to fly, because there are people who are going to be generous and gracious and acknowledge those things. But it is your responsibility as a person, let's say, attending the internet, to curate your own experience. That is your responsibility. And you cannot expect everyone you engage and follow with, even casually, especially casually, to suddenly tailor everything to you specifically. That is asking way too much of so many different people, but also just of one single person. It's different if you are in a small group chat, you know, obviously, and saying to your friends, hey, please don't bring up these topics. But it's totally different to go on like a social media website and be like, don't engage with me at all if you post any of these things. And I am talking like big broad categorizations of like, don't engage with me if you post about such and such piece of media. Like if it's like, don't engage with me if you enjoy Berserk, which, you know what, fine, valid, but it's not my responsibility if you follow me to stop posting those things. It's your responsibility as a viewer to disengage with those things and step away from them if they're not okay for you. I mean, I don't know, it'd be like going into a movie and getting like halfway through a scene and being like, Mr. Scorsese, I need you to change this one for me. Like, no, you get up and you leave.
The Irishman.
Mr. Scorsese, more women, please.
More women with lines, please. That movie is 3.5 hours long. There's 12 lines said by women the whole entire time.
God, that's ridiculous.
Oh, you did it!
Your jubilation.
The next important point is to take everything you read on the internet with a grain of salt.
Teese, why might we want to do that?
Because people lie on the internet.
People lie all the time on the internet.
Yeah.
I mean, including journalists, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I think there are a lot of more people who are in their exhaustion of the 24-hour news cycle, which understandable. It's terrible. It's awful. It's done more harm than it's done good. Have started looking to their friends and their colleagues to receive news. No, that's not a good methodology for doing that. And I understand that on some level you are trying and working to filter things so that you're not getting inundated with everything that's going on in the world all the time, which is absolutely understandable. But when you hear or you read something, I would encourage everyone, not just if you're a baby on the internet. I'm going to call you a baby because, I mean, I'm 25 and I'm still a baby in the heart of the world. But stop and ask yourself, you know, look for the sources of that information. How old is that information? Is it new? Has it been around for a while? Has it circulated multiple times? What evidence is being shown? And especially, how close are you to the situation, and do you need to distance yourself from it? And I think a really great example of this is what happened with Dan Avidan of Game Grumps the other week, which was a really frustrating situation that seems to have boiled down to a person coming forward and admitting that they brought this story up for clout and for attention and exposure. And it also came from a subreddit that was specifically built around trying to end the career of the Game Grumps. And I understand there is significant nuance to the situation. There is nuance to every situation. But the situation got blown way out of proportion, and a lot of words were thrown around that turned out to not be applicable to the situation, which do have long-lasting and devastating effects. And then people started harassing each other over where their opinion stood on the situation. So, you're not a first responder, more than likely, as a minor, especially if you are not personally involved in the situation. It's not going to hurt to take a step back and just wait and see what happens. Wait, keep yourself updated if you feel the need to, but update yourself from various sources who aren't just your friends, you know, and who aren't just people on Twitter repeating the same things over and over again, because you can very quickly work yourself into an echo chamber where you're just hearing the same opinions over and over again, and that subconsciously is going to validate them to you, but that doesn't mean they're necessarily true. There is nuance in all things. All things. All things. And Twitter, as we've talked about in the past, right, doesn't make a lot of space for nuance.
It's very black and white thinking on Twitter.
It's very black and white thinking.
On most social media.
On all social media and the internet as a whole, you know, the world has become very polarized, and I understand that there are certain aspects that, you know, have to be polarized. Like, yes, you cannot give quarter to fascism and Nazis. That is bad. There's no nuance in that one. Mm-hmm. You know, we do have to talk about, you know, the nuance in individual people and how people make mistakes and how people do need to apologize. There's nuance in different forms of media, in the textual readings of those things. And you really need to, I think, work on, just as a reader or enjoyer of, I understand. Some people just want to sit down and watch something. I get that. But I do think it is important to have the skill set to sit down and be able to watch something, but also be able to afterward acknowledge the parts that it gets wrong, the parts that it maybe gets right, and, the gray ground between them, and how each of those things can be interpreted differently, and how all of those things are coming from your own lens of experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
People especially are really never really wholly good or wholly bad.
That includes you and me. That includes everybody.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
The person listening.
Yeah. We've made mistakes. We've fucked up.
Yeah.
And I understand that, I think there's a very big difference, right, between calling for the accountability of someone and saying I want an apology from such and such YouTuber for this behavior, and going on a mob campaign and telling them to kill themselves. That's different. That's not acceptable. That's not okay. And I'll get into that a little bit later. But I would encourage you, in understanding that there's nuance with all things, to make friends with people who you can talk with. I think that's a really huge part of that. If you are afraid to talk to your friends because you have a different opinion, or because you're worried that they, I'm not joking, might make a call-out post about you, or might, attack you, that's not a good sign. Those are probably not people you want to continue to be friends with. You and your friends can be wrong, and you can disagree on things, but you should be able to talk about those disagreements, and you should be able to talk about your conflicts with your friends as well. Mm-hmm. I'm not a teenager right now, so I can't personally speak to the experience of being a teenager, but I remember when I was a teenager, this experience of somebody did one wrong thing and suddenly I used that to color their entire character and totally disengaged with them rather than talking to them about it, which that's not cool. That's not okay. Especially if that person doesn't know that what they did wasn't okay with you. If somebody upsets you, you have a right to talk to them about it. And if you upset somebody, they have a right to come to you and talk to you about it. I'm talking, of course, about people you are actually in contact with and have associated with, and not random people coming into your DMs on Twitter to say you should stop shipping this because it upsets me. That's a can of worms for another day.
Yeah. I mean, and obviously, I'm not even talking about, the pro-anti discourse or anything like that. But I'm just talking about, two characters, two consenting adults, two, literally for you to be I think, it's okay. It's okay to not ship two characters together and to ship one with the other character. They're not real. They don't have feelings.
Wading into some murkier water here. I know you say two consenting adult characters, but you're teenagers. Yeah. Ostensibly. Yeah. You are allowed to imagine romantic situations between other teenage characters. You are allowed to relate to teenage characters and child characters because you were a child once too. Yeah. So, I think in the same way that take everything on the internet with a grain of salt, grant people the benefit of the doubt. And you can talk to them, but also understand that nobody owes you a justification for anything, and you don't need to be starting arguments or lambasting somebody for doing something that you maybe don't agree with. Or if somebody ships Raylo and you don't, who cares? Leave them alone. What do you get from shouting at that person? What do you get?
You have to be in a grocery store bathroom.
Stop. A huge one that I don't think was in place enough for us as kids growing up, and still isn't in place enough, is to please limit your time on social media.
Oh my God, yeah.
I'm talking an hour a day at max. Social media, while still very new, we have found already it's not good for you. The way it bends your way of thinking and distorts your way of thinking is so still immeasurably messed up. It's not worth it. It is addictive. It is a compulsion to check it. I would encourage you to, talk to your parents about setting a time limit for you if you feel comfortable with that, so that you don't know the password to get in. But as somebody who always knew their parents' passwords growing up, I understand sometimes that doesn't work. But, work to distance yourself from social media and your phone. Find other ways to spend time and engage with your friends on a more personal level that isn't on Twitter, isn't on Facebook, isn't on Instagram.
Or TikTok.
Or TikTok.
Or TikTok.
I mean, TikTok, I don't have a TikTok, but I know on YouTube with the shorts that I just get sucked in really easily, and I just keep scrolling from one to the next. I don't even like them. I'm not even enjoying myself, but I'm just staring at the screen. It's a bad habit that has been formed over many years, and I hope that go outside, take a walk. If you can't do that, stare out a window.
Read a
Draw,
book. Play a game.
Do anything else. Anything else. Take up hobbies to enrich yourself. And I think another thing that has happened with social media is there's a lot of this pressure to be immediately good at stuff, right? Because you see all the people rise to the top on social media who are amazing at these things. Do things even if you're not good at them.
You don't have to post them either. Yeah.
You don't have to post them, yeah.
You don't have to monetize all your hobbies. You don't have to clout chase.
Yeah.
You should explore things because you're curious about them, you want to learn about them, and you want to take the time to do them. I know a lot of times it's fun to cosplay, it's fun to watch anime, and obviously as things get more and more popular, more and more people are going to be readily available to get to it without being judged. But also, at the end of the day, your hobbies aren't about trying to impress, like, the person that you want to impress. It should be about being fun for you and
or about impressing strangers.
Yeah. Listen, I only cosplay weird ass shit that only has 5 fans of, and every time I cosplay something that I'm happy to cosplay because I genuinely care about a series, I get a deep sense of pride and excitement out of it when I see the finished product. And then if somebody else happens to like it and recognize it, that's great. But at the end of the day, I'm doing it for me. I'm doing it with my friends because they want to do stuff with me. And it's about my friendship. It's about working on a craft and a skill and doing something that I love. It's not about getting popularity. It's not about even this podcast is about 2 friends who just happen to want to talk about something, to just have a conversation about stuff that they think is really cool or really ridiculous or should be talked about, you know? I mean, yeah, maybe this was a quarantine project, but we're still going to do it post-quarantine, you know?
That leads really well into the next point, which is before you post anything, think. And think on multiple levels. I think the first one, why are you posting it? You know, is it because, you know, you want to share it and you want to find other people who enjoy it? Is it because you want engagement and likes and follows? Is it because you're really proud of something and you want to share it with people? Is it because you just want attention? There's nothing wrong with posting things for attention, but if you find that you are regularly seeking out the attention of strangers, it is time to do a little bit of self-reflection. Ask yourself why you're seeking that attention out, and maybe seek ways to rectify that, because I really, it is a very dangerous game to measure your self-worth and, you know, your worthiness of attention against algorithms of social media that are always going to be against you. As well, with that, consider, is what you're posting kind? Is it productive? What can people learn from the information that you're sharing? It's not about everything you say on the internet is forever. It's more about what you choose to share is going to be a reflection of the person you are in some way for a lot of people. For most people, people are going to have a certain idea about you based on the things you share. Are you comfortable with people having those ideas about you? Are you comfortable with people making assumptions about you? Because being a visible person on the internet in any way, like even if you just have a profile where you're retweeting stuff, if people are following you, they are going to be making a judgment about the things you share. And there's a lot of pressure with that. And it ramps up really, really quickly. Even if you only have like 5 followers, if you don't know any of them, that's 5 strangers just staring at you.
Yeah.
That's a lot. That's a lot of pressure. Big one. Really big one. Don't engage in dogpiling or harassment. I don't care what the situation is. It is almost, I know I said there's nuance in everything, but when you are going on a dogpiling and harassment campaign, it very, very, very rarely is going to have the effect or impact that you want. It is not okay to send a person targeted harassment. Even if it's Ted Cruz and you're talking about how he pisses his pants, I get it. It's funny. but it's not okay. I don't like the man, but he's still a human being, and that's not helpful. Are the people you spend time with encouraging that kind of behavior as well? Especially if you are engaging in like targeted campaigns with friends, or you find yourself, switching to anonymous on Tumblr to send somebody like a really mean or criticizing ask, or you make a throwaway account on Twitter to send somebody like a nasty DM or criticize them or say something that you don't feel comfortable saying to them with your normal account. First of all, it's a pretty good sign that you don't want it to be attributed to you or your behavior when you're making a throwaway account or you're checking anonymous.
So I feel like a lot of times for people, especially teens, we have this really bad habit of thinking I'm a bad person because I think something. And a lot of times, well, even though if you have like a bad thought about somebody, it's okay. You don't have to like somebody.
Yeah.
You can think mean things about a person, but nobody sees what you're thinking unless you tell another person. Yeah. Like, I come off as an incredibly nice person, but internally I'm very
Teese is so mean.
I'm very mean.
We get off the call and Teese yells at me. No.
Caspian at work. How could you? No, I think everybody's a little mean to some degree, but it's a matter of how much of that meanness you show.
Yeah.
And it's okay if you have mean thoughts, but it's a matter of letting those mean thoughts in or out. And that goes for sad thoughts, and that goes for happy thoughts and stuff like that too. Like, obviously, you can still be depressed. If you want to talk about your depression with somebody, by all means, please do. But
we're going to talk about that then.
Yeah, like, the classic rule, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all. Like, you shouldn't want to start issues with people. You shouldn't want to start, like, we all love to start problems sometimes, but we shouldn't. Just
go watch, like, I don't know, a petty YouTuber for like 5 minutes and get it out of your system.
Yeah. Play around at DDR, blow off some steam, have a glass of water. It's okay. It's okay to be mean, and you can be mean with your friends, but don't.
There's
that's such a bad way to end that whole statement.
No. There's a difference, right, between venting your frustrations about somebody with close friends
and actively attacking somebody.
Yeah, actively attacking somebody or subtweeting on the timeline where it's visible for lots of people. I once saw a Tumblr post a long, long time ago that has stuck with me, where somebody's mom had shared with them, it's not about the first thought you have, it's about the thought that follows that and the actions you take with it.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Your brain is capable of making up some mean shit because the human brain just does things. You will have, invasive thoughts. You go to meditate and you have these terrible, awful thoughts because you've essentially decluttered your mind and made space for these things. But you're not going to actively go out and do some of those terrible things you might think about. And that's what makes you as a person. It's the things you do and the things you say that other people can characterize you with. They don't know the inside of your brain.
No one can read your mind. Trust me, I've been on planes before when I really thought somebody could read my mind, but guess what?
Yeah.
They can't. Nobody can read your mind. It's okay.
Yeah. And, I think a lot of times we see a lot of this dogpiling and harassment build up in very subtle ways, like this advent of cringe culture. And I know I've talked about before how I don't like it, but a lot of times it's like cringe culture seems to be, making fun of people who are literally just enjoying things and having fun. If you find yourself making fun of someone for having fun, stop and ask yourself why you're making fun of them. I know that when I was a teenager, a lot of that came from a place because I was embarrassed to share what I liked. And so I turned that outward and made fun of people who were proud and who were enjoying the things that they liked. And guess what? Those people were a lot happier than I was.
Yeah.
If the people you are spending time with are encouraging this kind of behavior, on a small scale or a large scale, it's probably time to take a step back from those people. And I understand that can be hard. If they are close enough with you and you trust them enough, I would say talk to them about it and how you're kind of uncomfortable with that and how you're maybe trying to make a change. Also understanding too, and I mentioned this before, but no one on the internet owes you time or information to justify their behavior. And most of the time, it is better to block or mute that person and move on if you know you can't have a productive conversation about it. And I'm talking productive conversation in the way of like, hey, I've noticed you sort of sharing some of these sentiments. Could you explain that to me? I don't really agree with them, but I'd like to understand your perspective. I'm not talking about going into somebody's ass box and being like, why the hell do you ship Baku Deku? Kiri Baku's better. No, stop it. That's not productive. What do you get from that? Arguments with strangers don't help you and are probably only going to upset you and upset them. And they just don't help. They just don't help. You can talk about your stuff with your friends instead. Stuff that you enjoy. Make friends over stuff you enjoy and not things you hate. I'm going to shoehorn that in really quick. But don't build a friendship off of you two mutually disliking something because your friendship is inherently built off of negativity, you know? Yeah. Like, try and find real, earnest ways to connect with people about the things you enjoy and that you can enjoy together. Instead of
share
just, like,
things with your friends. Yeah. Let your friends explore things that you like that they don't know about, and vice versa. Be willing to explore new things with your friends, you know?
Yeah.
It's some of my favorite things I got into because of my friends like them. And it's exciting because it's just another thing that you guys can talk about and grow your relationship on. And obviously your friendship shouldn't just be based solely on what media and entertainment you enjoy, but it should be about trusting each other and talking to each other about your feelings and caring about things. And I have tons of friends that I don't have 100% agreements with, but there's still people I really care about because at the end of the day, we have similar core values, and that's what's more important to me than...
Teese and I don't like all the same stuff. I mean, you heard at the beginning. Teese isn't a super big person for Berserk, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I won't be talking to Teese after we finish recording this, but, like, that's okay.
Okay. Sorry, Cass. Well, it was nice knowing you.
No, I love you very much.
I love you, too.
If you see targeted bullying, if you're a witness to it, or you know people who are a part of it, talk to a trusted adult about that. Get their perspective. Get their advice. If you don't have a trusted adult in your life, it is time to try and seek one out, you know, and I understand that that can be very difficult for some people, you know. Try and talk with teachers who you trust and who you feel comfortable with. School counselors can be a great resource. I understand and know that a lot of people have very difficult relationships with their parents, and their parents aren't people that they can trust with some of this information. It
Even
is
an
okay.
Older cousin, yeah.
Yeah, an older cousin is older cousins, you know,
your friends'
older siblings of your friends, even like there are, or even your friends' parents. You know, if there are adults who you can talk to, you're never gonna hurt for talking to more people and getting more perspectives and more advice. I think a huge thing that we all should learn and take to heart and really practice is, when is it time to take a step back? And when I talk about taking a step back, I mean from people, from TV shows, from social media websites, from anything. If you find yourself becoming really upset over people you don't know, whether those be, you know, like friends of friends, or big name internet celebrities, or big, you know, traditional world celebrities, or the opinions of others in regards to their feelings about those things really upsets you, that's probably a good signal that it is time to take a step away and kind of distance yourself. My biggest recommendation is to take a break from social media. After that, it's stop seeking out. I'm talking specifically about, you know, like if you're in a fandom, right, and it's really bothering you when other people interpret a character a certain way, or, you know, they have certain ideas about how the text should be read. That's, you know, if those things are starting to get really upsetting for you, that's a good sign to take a step away. You know, stop seeking out fan content and fan circles for a while. If you are a part of Discord servers, take a break from them, mute them. If muting them isn't enough, leave them for a while, because you can always come back to them. The fan content that exists isn't going to miraculously disappear. And if you're really worried about, like, missing out on something, think of it as you're going to have a huge stockpile that builds up that you'll get to go back to and explore anew when you're feeling a little bit better and have more of a barrier between you and this thing. Make things for yourself, I think, is a huge one. If you still want to engage with that fan content, but, aren't quite comfortable being with the fandom space for a while, you can write your own fan fiction. Don't post it. Don't post it, don't share it, but you can make fan art for yourself. Just make it a more private hobby for a little bit and take a step away. And if you find that you come back and you're still getting really upset over how other people feel, then you need to step back for a little longer and maybe stop making that stuff for yourself and go explore something totally new. There's a difference between hyperfixations where you're really enjoying something, and I think when you get to a point, right, where you're becoming really pressed about how other people feel about that thing, that's not a good sign. Especially when you're internalizing that and making it about yourself. And I don't mean that in a selfish way, but you can't help but if somebody trashes Prompto Argentum, and you take that really personally, take a step back. Prompto is not real. He is a character. He lives in your heart, and you can love and enjoy him. But it's not a personal attack on you if other people dislike him or
even
interpretations
if you kin
of him.
Even if you kin, or there is a comfort character for you. I
think
understand.
Comfort characters you especially have to be careful of this with.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
I know, it sucks. If somebody says something mean about Tanaka Haikyuu, I feel like I want to attack you, but also
slap his bald ass head like a volleyball.
But also, at the end of the day, I know he's not real, and he might feel real to you. Any character might feel real to you, but at the end of the day, they are made up by another person. And I mean, I don't 100% understand kinning. I don't kin. But at the end, and I understand that they feel very real to you. You feel like they are a part of you, but also other people's views on that character cannot be controlled by you.
Yeah, you cannot control other people and their feelings. That's a huge life lesson. I mean,
maybe
just in
this
general.
episode should be for everybody and not just for little babies.
Yeah.
Because
there are
I'm going to take my own advice. Yeah. Me, a grown-ass 26-year-old. Oh my god, am I 26 or 27? I'm 26. Oh my god, that was so weird.
So I had a moment this week where I'm going through it a little bit, and I'm rereading a book series before I get to the new sequel. And I told my friend, I was like, I'm at a point where I'm really nervous to keep reading them because it's going to end, and I don't know what I'm going to do with myself afterward. And my friend was like, well, okay, remember, it's a book. It's still going to be there, and you can always reread it, and those characters are always going to be there. They're not going to disappear. So you can take a break for a while if you need to and come back when you feel a little bit more secure. And by no means am I saying, if something is helping you cope with a difficult situation, to abandon it. If you have a mental health care professional that you are speaking to, listen to their advice. I am just a random person on the internet. I'm just here to offer what I can. But I think there's a significant difference between, this thing is helping me get through something, and this thing has become so innately a part of me that I don't know what I would do without it. That's a little bit of a problem. You got to distance yourself. You got to put a little distance.
And you could also experience a piece of media without being a part of a fan base.
Yes.
And you can go back to something when a fandom, quote unquote, is dead. You can watch the series that you and your mom can watch a show together that's 30 years old that literally only you, your mom, and your mom's best friend from middle school still care about, You can watch things, you could read things. There's no time limit or expiration date on things to enjoy and when to enjoy them.
Yeah.
There's stuff that I love that it does not enter the public consciousness's mind.
We get it, your niche.
Yeah, shut up. You know what I'm trying to say? You can enjoy a band that only has 5 followers because you found a CD in the dollar bin. There's ways to enjoy things without having to share fan content to consume fan content. I highly recommend it because you can make your own ideas, you can form your own conclusions, your own analyses. When you are alone in consuming a piece of media or having a hobby or something like that, it's great to have help and to have friends. However, that becomes something that's special for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like the way that social media has set up media, the cycle that media survives in is so short now.
So short. It's rapacious.
It's you can't, like, there's no way. There's absolutely no. There's so many fantastic things out there that nobody in your online circles are talking about, and I really think that you should explore it. Take a walk through your library. Start learning some weird traditional instrument from your family's culture.
Yeah.
Just take a leap. You know,
we're not sponsored, but frankly, like, go on Skillshare, take a class, like, just in anything. Learn a new skill. I have found
learn
that
to crochet with your grandma, like,
connect with people outside of fandom spaces, like, and I think that goes hand in hand, right, with, you know, making friends with people based on things you love and enjoy as opposed to dislike, but also make friends with all sorts of different people, especially outside of your fandom. Like, get out of your bubble. And, like, I mean, all of my friends are intensely interested in lots and lots and lots of different things. And I have found that the best strategy for me to not getting too attached to a piece of media to the point where I start to internalize other people's criticisms about it is to just explore so many different things that, and I get it, hyperfixation is real. It happens. We do have special interests. Like, those are very real things. But it's all about balance, as with anything else in life. Cass and I
only have two things in common.
Yeah, we actually, like, I don't think we have a lot of overlap, genuinely speaking, in things we enjoy, but I think that's why we're such good friends. Because
Final Fantasy 15 and Furbies, that's it.
We're almost always talking about just totally different stuff and introducing each other to new things. And, like, that's what makes our friendship so invigorating.
Yeah.
Like, I love talking to you for that reason. Yeah.
Yeah. I like, to be real, and I know this is going off topic, but Cass truly is, like, one of my greatest friends, just because our experiences together as friends. Shut up! The experience of being his
gross.
friend is just, oh my god, can I be nice to you for 2 seconds?
No.
Okay.
I love you so much.
I love you too. But what I was going to say was that because we do have enough differences with each other, we can be authentic and frank with each other. And I so deeply appreciate that, because he's willing to listen to me on my end and vice versa. And in turn, I think that's really made us really great friends and really compatible in that way. And it's okay if your friends don't like the same exact things that you do. Do you know how often I just bore Cass to death with links to clothing?
No. Okay, the links to clothing are my favorite thing. I feel bad when you start talking about music and I'm like, I don't know any words that are coming out of your mouth right now. I'm like, I don't know if that was one band name or like 3 different ones all strung together. Anyway.
6 album names, 3 song titles, and a genre.
That's your new band name. Another thing that goes a lot with sort of this, like, building up a good distance, there has been a huge increase in anti-recovery rhetoric that has really, really bloomed in the last 10 years, especially on Tumblr and Twitter. And when I talk about anti-recovery, what I mean is anti-recovery in regards to mental illness specifically. There has been a really big, I think, overcorrection for a lot of people in an attempt to normalize a lot of things that come along with mental illness, to instead say that those things are okay. You do need to try and brush your teeth every day. I understand that that is difficult, but it is very important to your overall health. I'm not just saying that because my mother is a dental hygienist, but it's very important for you to take care of yourself, and I do genuinely understand that some days that feels impossible. So I will say, do the best you can. But when you have people around you who are saying, fuck brushing your teeth every day, or fuck eating healthy, or like, your depression isn't going to get better, you just have to learn to live with it and like live in spite of it, those things aren't helpful. If you find yourself making a lot of self-deprecating jokes, or view your low point of your mental illness being forever, or you make a lot of jokes about killing yourself, that is a huge indication, at least to me, that you need to take a step back from social media None of those are really appropriate things to joke about in the way I see a lot of people joke about them online. They can normalize a lot of those feelings which aren't okay and aren't healthy, like genuinely are not medically healthy. Encourage your friends, if they're making those jokes, to stop making them as well. As somebody who has made those jokes in the past of like walking past a trash can, pointing at it and going, "It's me," I then had
It's not
friends who
you.
then thought it was appropriate to call me trash. And I'm not okay with that. I became really not okay with that really fast. But because I had normalized that behavior and said it was okay for me to call myself trash, suddenly I had friends jumping in on it. And like I talked about that with them. And, you know, like that was a big growth moment for me to say, like, I can't let you do this, which means I can't let myself do this either. Seek out resources online and support groups to, you know, work towards better thinking. Your thinking really does change a lot. And I'm speaking from somebody who does have diagnosed mental illness, has had some hospital stays. You know, it has been very difficult. So please don't take this as like me being some yuppie person telling you if you just smile more, it'll get better. Because I understand that a lot of times you don't have access to resources that would make it astronomically easier, or you are in a place where it is very, very difficult to get better. That being said, I really encourage you to not make those jokes because it just entrenches it further in your brain. Talk to a trusted adult about therapy if you can. Again, that doesn't have to be a parent, but there are other adults and people in your lives who can help you. And, you know, sometimes it is difficult to help yourself, but, you know, I've made phone calls for friends. I've helped friends out with all sorts of things, and friends who don't live immediately near me. So
If you don't have access to a therapist, there's a lot of online resources that are pro bono, you know? There's a lot of digital things.
make sure you're seeking out support groups, though, and not vent groups.
Yes.
Because those can be very taxing very, very quickly. If your friends are only ever coming to you to talk about personal pains or difficulties or things that are upsetting them, it's okay to take a break from them as well. You know, it is okay to sit down and talk with your friend and say, "Hey, I need a break." There are friendship breaks, and they are okay. But support groups that promote positivity and health and wellness and thoughtfulness and awareness of the self. Like, read some books, too.
There's a lot of great self-help books. There really are.
There genuinely are. None of Greg Ellis's, though.
No.
One of the things that we're dealing with a lot right now with the internet is the topic and discussion of grooming. And before I get into this one a little bit deeper, I want to make it very clear that grooming and manipulation are not exclusive to minors and can and do happen to adults. So, please do not think that once you have turned over to this magical age of 18, you are suddenly immune to predatory behavior, because that is not the reality. Power dynamics exist all across our spectrum of life in different forms and ways and facets. This is another reason why I think it's really important to have diverse friend groups with varied interests, so that you always have different perspectives and people to talk to who you can get advice from when you need it and get different perspectives. I want to talk a little bit about some red flags that you can hopefully keep your eye out for. Again, I do want to reiterate that if you have been the victim of grooming or manipulation or abuse in the past, and these are maybe things you didn't recognize, that's not your fault. It is the fault of your abuser, of the person who groomed you. You are a victim, and you are not responsible for the damage that somebody else or the harm that somebody else did to you. When you are a minor specifically, I would be wary of especially adults and significantly older teens trying to befriend you. And I'm not talking about adults like teachers who want to get to know more about you, or who, you know, they maybe are a trusted adult in your life and they're talking to you on I want to say a professional but casual level about how they can help you as their student, or as a person in their life, you know, what have you. But I'm talking about adults who speak to you on your level. And I mean that in a way of trying to appeal to you, to get closer to you, to establish themselves on the same level as your close friends. That's when it gets kind of worrying. Remarks on how you're so mature for your age or that you sound older than you are really big red flags. And some common ones that people will say a lot are, you are more mature and intelligent than your friends, or you're the only, 15-year-old that I would date, or I feel bad about dating you because you're so young. But because it's us, I know it's okay, or this would be bad between any other couple. Those are huge red flags. Those are like big, giant, glowing red flags. Super, super big red flags to know about, and I think it's really important to understand that grooming and manipulation happen over time, and they happen slowly with lots and lots of little things. And there are a ton of online resources if you are worried that you are maybe in one of these situations, or that a friend is in one of these situations, that you can kind of look at to compare about, the stages of grooming, how it happens. If an adult or a significantly older person is sharing inappropriate or sexual content with you, first of all, that's not appropriate at all. Adults should not be sharing sexual content with you on any level. I don't care if that's written fic or whatnot. That's totally inappropriate, and not okay. I don't mean recommending you a John Green book that has like a YA sex scene in it. I mean like sending you pornography, whether it is drawn or is actual photographs or videos, or suggesting you read Lolita. Things like that. And, asking your opinion on those things, or sharing, again, because they remark on your maturity. These are all like little tests that groomers will do to try and test the waters. They will often encourage you to keep secrets from close family and friends, and that's a big red flag. There's a difference between your friend coming to you and saying like, oh, I stole money from my mom, please don't tell her, kind of thing, and an adult saying, you shouldn't tell other people about us because they would get weirded out. That's a huge red flag. You shouldn't have friends who are a secret. That's If you find that they're actively working to isolate you from other friends and family, and I mean going out of their way to talk badly about your friends or members of your family, really you find that your opinion of your friends or your family has changed really drastically since talking to them. And there's valid reasons for that and not. There's a difference between someone pointing out, toxic behavior or not, but if they're constantly pitting you against those friends and trying to get you to spend less time with them, that's a bad sign. Trust your gut when you have a bad feeling about something. Again, speak to a trusted adult. And I want to reiterate again that grooming is not exclusive to minors, and it does and can happen to adults. Piggybacking off of that, you shouldn't be learning sex ed from your friends or from fan fiction or from TV. Oh my God, no. Or pornography, for that matter, because no. I don't want to go super into this one. What I will tell you is that there is a website called Scarleteen, spelled SCARLETEEN, which is an incredible inclusive resource for learning about sex ed in a safe and productive fashion that is honest and realistic. I get that as a teenager, you are going to be talking about your friends and your sexual experiences, and so, people are going to say things. People are going to say things that aren't true. Pee is not stored in the balls. I get that it's a joke. It's not. It's not stored there. But you hear things like that, or like sex should hurt your first time, or you read about sexual encounters in fan fiction, you're like, this is it. This is the perfect sex scene. Okay. Those are all curated and made specifically to be enjoyed and to be consumable. I guess is the best way to put that. Mm-hmm. But they're very styled and closely kept and like manicured in a way that real actual sex isn't. Go to Scarleteen, learn about sex from there. I wouldn't even recommend trusting your sex ed teacher at this point because America's broken inside down to the very core. Oh my God. If I could tell you some of the things my sex ed teacher said, oh my God. Scarleteen's great. Scarleteen is inclusive if you are a trans or non-binary individual. Scarleteen has got your back. They also talk about sex when you're disabled, which is huge. And not a lot of sex ed resources do that. And that's a big thing. We're going to start wrapping it up now. So I want to circle back to our original point, which is to be considerate of what information you share and who you share it with. I talked about this a little bit at the beginning, but be thoughtful. Just be thoughtful about what information you're sharing and who you're sharing it with. Do you want that person to have that information about you? What and who does it serve by telling that person that information? And can you wait to have that conversation a little while down the road? Like, why is it so important that you share that information right then in that moment? You know who's not going to tell your secrets? A journal. Unless you have
your
like
dog.
a younger... your dog. Talk to your dog. Your hamster. Your lizard. Your gecko. The ants crawling around in your kitchen. I know they're there. I know you have ants. There's nobody in this country who doesn't have ants. But you don't need to share everything with everyone. And I think one thing that I have learned a lot as I've grown up that I wish I had also known when I was younger, even just a year younger, you cannot physically, emotionally, mentally give the same amount of energy to every single one of your friends. It's impossible. It's okay to have friends you are closer with in some respect than others. If you have friends who get really mad because you're closer with other people than them, that's a little bit of a problem. Take a step back from that friend. That friend has some things to work through as well. Maybe you do too. It's okay to have friends of different levels of closeness. It is okay to feel more comfortable sharing some things with some friends than others. That's totally normal. I think the big lesson from all of this is try and maintain your privacy as best you can. Have a trusted adult or a few that you can talk to. And curate for yourself like a good group of friends who you trust and you can talk with and have discussions and disagree with and ask questions of. At the end of the day, we all make mistakes and we're all going to mess up. Even adults, especially adults. It is okay to make mistakes. And yes, some mistakes are far bigger and more damaging than others. But the best thing you can do is to apologize and listen and learn and work on yourself to grow.
I think the internet is ever growing and ever changing. And a lot of the information that was available 5 years ago might have not even been available 10 years ago on the internet. And conversations that we're having literally last week may have not touched certain people's consciousnesses until literally last week before. And I mean, yeah, sometimes that's a privilege, but also sometimes you do need to afford people the space to learn and to educate themselves and to grow.
Not everyone can know everything.
Yeah, so please be mindful, I guess, in turn with how it is, how we react to things. And that's not to say you can't ever forgive somebody. I mean, to get personal myself, I've literally been stalked online before. And it didn't matter that I was 23. Like, it still was scary.
Yeah.
Have I forgiven that person? No. Do they still try to interact with me online, but I'm too chicken shit to block them? Yeah. And it's one of those things that, like, you're the person who chooses to forgive somebody, and you can't choose if anybody else forgives you. But at the end of the day, like, the person who did stalk me, like, I know maybe they wouldn't do it now if it was the same circumstances and stuff like that, but am I still uncomfortable around them? Do I still feel deeply unsettled by them trying to talk to me? Yes. You know, and that's for me to work out. That's not for them. I don't even know if they remember that they did it to me at this point, you know?
I think what's important in that, right, is that if you hurt someone, you owe them an apology, but nobody owes you forgiveness.
Yeah, exactly. And you could say, I accept your apology, but you don't have to forgive that person physically. Like, you could understand that they made a mistake, and you could see that they are apologizing to you and realizing that they have done wrong. But you don't have to accept. You could say thank you, but you don't have to accept it. Until you see growth or change or something like that. Like, there's no expiration date on. And don't hold a grudge, but there's no, like, you don't
There's a difference
have to,
between forgiving and letting go and moving on, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's a lot packed in an episode, and I think we could go on forever. And I mean, we've talked about a lot of different little aspects of these things in our episodes, but I think the really core of it, right, is, talk to a trusted adult. If you're having
a friend.
If you're having issues online, if somebody is making you really uncomfortable online, be prepared to divorce yourself from social media. And I know that can seem scary, but like, be prepared to unplug. And, I've had to nuke my accounts before. I've had to nuke my whole internet history and presence on the internet before because of similar situations to what Teese described. And it's scary, but you have to do things for yourself. And at the end of the day, in the same way that you can't control other people, that comes with acknowledging that you only control yourself and you only live life through your experiences. Talk to people, listen, learn, be open, be understanding, be kind. Just keep an open ear. And like, being a teenager is hard. Oh, I did it. You did it.
In the eternal words.
Being a teenager is really hard, and it's really difficult. And if you aren't even a teenager yet, if you're like a preteen, how did you find this podcast? Shout out to you for being a baby and listening to podcasts. We all babies out here.
What's up, you cool baby? In the eternal words of Simple Plan, I'm just a kid and life is a nightmare.
Oh, it really is. All the time.
All the time.
There are going to be people who listen to this who don't know who Simple Plan is.
Oh my god, that's really weird.
On that note, if you have questions for us, if you want to reach out to us, any of that, you can find all of our contact information on authorsnotepod.com. If you want to help support the podcast, the best and most free way you can do that is to share us with a friend. Leave a review on any of the podcasting apps you might listen to us through, that sort of thing. We also have a Patreon. Now, after next week, we're going to be taking a week off. But that week on Patreon, we will be releasing a monthly episode. And that monthly episode is called Show and Tell, where Teese and I talk about things that we love.
Do you know what you're going to talk about? Do we want to give a little preview of what we're going to talk about to possibly entice the listeners, or no?
I'm going to be talking about Kiki's Delivery Service.
Wow! I'm going to talk about the album that fundamentally made me the monster that I am today. The Powerpuff Girls compilation album, Heroes and Villains.
I cannot wait. That is available to our $5 patrons, and patrons at the $1 tier get access to a monthly poll to vote about one of our episode topics. Our patrons decided that next week we're going to be talking about Tails Gets Trolled, so I'm excited to learn about that. But
I have to be the one who reads all of it.
Listen, I'll read it.
It's okay.
I'm not letting you go on that crusade alone. I can read it. I just won't do any research.
Okay.
Consider checking out our Patreon. If you're not interested in a monthly subscription, I totally get that. But maybe you want to throw us a couple bucks because you really enjoyed the episode. You can find us on Ko-fi. That's ko-fi. On Patreon and Ko-fi, we are Authors Note Pod. If you want to find more of me on the internet, you can find me pretty much everywhere. Advising the youngins as at Valhethella. That's VALHETHELLA. Teese, if people want to find you, where can they get you at?
You can find me at Vicuña, that's VICUNAD. I guess there's also the Fresh Podcast Market, which is a real podcast about fake podcasts that I host with a friend of the show, Panda and Pandanata. And that's just a ding-dong podcast where
You talk about peepuses?
I sure do. Talk about Peepus Room. And I make up the worst possible podcast ideas imaginable. Our theme music was done by James Wyelo. You could find him on Bandcamp under James Y. And Cass, where and who can you find the person who made our cover art?
If you go to your nearest drainage pipe and you speak quietly into it and go pss, 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 you will find our cover artist. That's Jala. You can find her on Twitter at Nyaliest. That's NYALLIEST. She doesn't really post art, but she does post a lot of pictures of her cats, and for April Fool's Day, she stole my cat. So, if you want to find Eskel content, you can find it on Jala's Twitter.
I was going to say, she also hunts monsters with us.
She also hunts monsters with us. Monster Hunter, not... We ain't going out looking for Mothman. We've
been playing Monster Hunter together. It's been great. Baby's first Monster Hunter.
Baby's first Monster Hunter.
That's
Until
what
next
I've been
time,
consuming.
Dongo. Until next time, wear your mask, eat some dongo, prep for your hunt, and stay safe. Bye!
Bye!